Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good morning I bid to all my lecture, my fellow brother and sister. My name is Wan Karnisa binti Muhammad Supian and welcome to our seminar entitled Criminology Inside the Criminal Mind. So today I will be the first presenter that will be presenting on the introduction of crime. So what is crime? When we start talking about crime, many people think about famous cases such as assault of George Floyd in US recently or murder that had been committed by Muhammad Fendi in Malaysia in 1993. However, crime isn't restricted only to famous or big cases, but crime also includes robberies, violence, rapes, drug, human trafficking, and even tax violation also can be considered as a crime. What else is crime and what is not a crime? These questions seem have very obvious answer and easy answer, but when we start looking deeply into crime, it turns out that it's not always so easy to say what is crime and what is not a crime. So let's take a look on the definition of the crime. Individual may define crime differently in different localities or different stages of crime. Here I have included two different definitions from two different perspectives, which are from Islamic perspective and Western perspective. According to Sir Richard T. Stafford, cited from his book entitled Sociology, crime can be defined as a violation of criminal law for which some governmental authorities apply from a penalty. He means that crime is a breach of rule or laws which some governing authority can ultimately prescribe a conviction. A punishment or penalty will be imposed on somebody who is convicted of a crime. Meanwhile, Zulkifli Muda described crime as the commission of a prohibited or omission of an obligatory act for which punishment is prescribed. Both Islamic and Western definition share the same concept of crime, which focuses on the omission of a prohibited act which punishment has been determined or provided. So let's watch several videos on how people understand on the definition of crime.
Crime is the behaviours that are in opposition to society.
Crime was a way of me earning my living.
It was a way of life when I was a kid.
I mean, if someone is ambitious in life and they might have expensive taste or whatever, so they want to get money, and they get money in any way that they see fit.
The crimes that you call acceptable is what defines you as a person.
An act that goes beyond like normality, what people think is normal, like how we should act.
So, do you guys ever wondered when the crime started to begin? At what era did the people started to implement law and punishment in order to reduce the crime? So generally, many religious communities regard crime as a sin. For example, our own religion, Islam. Islam regard crime as an act against Allah and it is declared as forbidden and prohibited. Some of the community may even highlight the crime in every legendary or mythological accounts of origin. However, the earliest known of civilization had their own codes of law containing both penal and rules mixed together, even though it is not always in recorded form officially. The first civilization that we talk about is Mesopotamian civilization. The Code of Hammurabi is a well-preserved record of law of ancient Mesopotamia, and it is one of the oldest decipherati of significant land in the world, which is consists of 282 laws with scale punishment, and it is graded based on social stratification depending on social status and gender. Nearly half of the codes deal with the matter of contract. For example, how many payment does need to be paid for a certain and others. And the Code of Hammurabi is currently on display in Louvre, France, with other many replicas. Now I will explain on the rule and regulation during Egyptian civilization. Egyptian law is the law that originated with the unification between the Lower and Upper Egypt under King Menes. The history of Egyptian law is longer than the other civilizations. Even after the Romans occupied Egypt, the element of Egyptian law was still retained and implemented within the Egyptian society. In Egyptian law and regulation, Pharaoh held supreme authority in settling the disputes, but they often hand it to this power to the other officials such as governor and magistrate to conduct trials and investigation. Crime in ancient Egypt tended to be divided into two, which are crime against the state and crime against individuals. And unlike Hammurabi Code of Law, Egyptian law code has not been found yet, but it is believed to be existed in our timeline. So we have learned before on the history of crime and law during Mesopotamian and Egyptian civilization. Now I will explain on the history and the sources of Islamic law. We have understand that the Islamic law are much different from the Western law in two different ways, which are the Islamic law scopes are much wider from Western law because it's not only deal with the relationship between human and human, but also deal with the relationship between human and God, which is Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Sharia law were passed down directly from Prophet Muhammad SAW without any historical development, and Islamic criminal law is just Islamic law, even though there are some differences on the standard of the punishment, such as the officer that falls under the hudud and others, but all of them are subjected to the main sources, which is the punishment falls under Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. And we also should be noted that Sunnah Nabawi is also among of the sources Islamic law that we should be referred to. There are a number of Quran verses that actually highlight the significance of obedience to Prophet Muhammad SAW and the consequences of disobedience to the teaching of Prophet Muhammad SAW. Unlike the man-made law, Islamic law are not subjected to modification, and whereas the man-made law can be changed or modified according to the different authorities or the different eras. So now we'll be moving on to the worldwide crime statistic. By the May of 2020, the International Statistic of Crime has posted on the Feature of Crime Index all over 133 countries. One could think that it worth noting that increases in one setting of crime does not mean that there have been more crime committed. The data that have been produced in only based on police records and survey which discusses the crime that people has been experienced. What we can understand based on this data that have been taken recently, by the year of 2020, Venezuela held the country with the highest crime index, then followed by Papua New Guinea and South Africa. I know that you are wondering where is Malaysia. Actually, Malaysia was ranked at 26 with crime index of 58.55 and self-index of 41.45. Thus, the overall risk of living or traveling to Malaysia is medium, and Malaysia is generally a safe country to visit or to live, but we should be careful when it comes to petty theft or scam. The rate of these two crimes are much higher in Malaysia compared to the other countries. As for the country with lowest index crime is owned by Qatar with the crime index of 11.9 and the safe index of 88.1. Thus, it concludes that Qatar is a very safe country to travel or to live in. The crime in rate are low, including violent crime, are extremely rare, especially towards the foreigner. Petty theft exists, but is not common, although there have been some reports on the concerning credit card scam. Okay, now let's dive into the crime statistic in Malaysia. This data was taken from the Department of Statistics Malaysia in 2018. The data from DSM shows that the crime in Malaysia has generally fallen slowly in line with the general trend of reducing crime rate in recent years. So when we look at the overall crime in Malaysia, the crime rate has been steadily reducing from 355.2 in 2016 to 273 in 2018. Kuala Lumpur held as the city with the highest crime index for the past 3 years, with 642.6 in 2018, then followed by Selangor. We also noticed that by the year of 2018, Terengganu is the city with the lowest crime statistic, then followed by Sabah. So now I will pass this seminar to my friend Ahmad Harizal to talk on the commerce crime in Malaysia.